Introduction. Just as it takes a city to raise a child, it takes a city of types of intelligence to live a happy and fulfilling life. As Walter Anderson once said in one of his books, our lives improve only when we step ahead to take chances. And the first and most thriving risk we can take is to be honest with ourselves. I'd like to start by congratulating you for purchasing the Emotional Intelligence, a guide that has been computed based on various researches conducted on how you can become likable and captivating. I've gone through months of research work and writing to make your emotional life better. So now you have to step slightly outside your comfort zone and be honest with yourself. This way, you will stand a chance of being a better person after reading this. So what I'm trying to say is that if you're serious about being successful at everything you do in life, if you're serious about turning out to be a person who exudes personal charm and charisma, then you have to take actions with what you'll learn in this book. There are quite a number of ways to be smart. Intellectual quotient happens to be one way. And another approach to being smart, emotional intelligence and social likability, is at the forefront of much of today's leadership, team, and organization development around the world, based on numerous research work carried out to bring about this ebook. Although you might have heard about the cultural and spiritual intelligence, of course they are true, but one needs the two mentioned earlier to effectively work on solid grounds and achieve great things in life. It's important for you to understand that it would be impossible to go far if you did not seek for ways to increase the emotional effectiveness of everything you do. It's my hope that you will be able to see and have an in-depth understanding of what to do from a new perspective and vantage point. If you're able to achieve this, then you'd be just one step ahead to helping humans relate with each other with increased creativity and enthusiasm, coupled with reduced destructive competition and conflict. Probably, you might have even thought about it, that social likability or emotional intelligence is not a genetic trait? I used to think that way too, like I was born with low social skills. But the fact that I've been able to totally not only improve my social abilities, but become the kind of human who people gravitate to, has proven to me that this whole superhuman thing can be learned. And it's my duty to let you know about it. Get it? No one is born as the next head of state, or president of the United States, or as a future movie star, or CEO from birth. People learn how to translate what other people want to hear and see, and then deliver it with precision, controlled by their emotions, either strong or weak. How to make a killer first impression, and then keep it on the move day after day. That's how it works. You can do the same thing. All you need to do is watch, take a good look at what people like in other people, and compare that with the factor that is holding you back. Sit back and relax. It's all within you to believe that everything gets better. Happy reading. Chapter 1. Understanding Emotional Intelligence. Mapping out the terrain. We've been able to come up with the conclusion that emotional intelligence is everywhere. This has made educators, executives, and lifestyle gurus bow to the notion that what people actually need in their lives is emotional awareness, improved sensitivity, and social likability. No one has been able to come up with the true definition of emotional intelligence. Oscar Wilde once described that the advantage of the emotion is that they tend to lead us astray, and the advantage of the science involved is that it is not emotional. This doesn't still explain what emotional intelligence is, and why it has assumed such prominence in the present world. To give an answer to these questions, it's important to begin with an active definition of what emotional intelligence is. For now, I would suggest that we take the term to refer to a generic competence in perceiving emotions, both in yourself and in other people. Now, we could go on by saying this competence also helps us to regulate emotions and cope efficiently with emotive situations. Thus conceived, emotional intelligence appears so important because a lot of people refuse to manage emotions carefully and successfully. Did you know that it's possible that you may be blind to your own emotional reactions? Or you may just fail to control your emotional outbursts. Worse still, you may unconsciously act foolish under pressure. From this point of view, the potential importance of social likability and emotional intelligence should become self-evident. Have you noticed any problems at all with your personal relationships or marriage? Or difficulties coping with workload or assignments? Low emotional intelligence may be active, even with the recent enthusiasm in the media, trade texts, and some other physiological guides. Some information and skepticism are requisite. Maybe emotional intelligence is nothing more than a common fad along the lines of crystal healing, sexual intelligence, and other New Age excesses. The stated goal in writing this book is to highlight the state-of-the-art summary of what it is and what is not in the domain of emotional intelligence. This can be accomplished by examining the known and the unknowns of emotional intelligence from another angle, scientific angle. My main intention is to cob the readers with a cache of facts from which to evaluate the status of this minted construct. Popular interest in emotional intelligence evolved from a perspective that is intertwined with academic studies. These studies seek to bring on sophisticated theories and biological concomitants and precedents of emotionally intelligent attitudes and behaviors. They also prompt accurate measures of these character traits and behaviors. Furthermore, these studies are carried out to understand how emotional intelligence and social likability are related to valued social outcomes and functions. In this chapter and the coming ones, the reasons why there have been so much buzz surrounding emotional intelligence will be discussed, as well as the position it holds within a cultural zeitgeist that is increasingly accepting and valuing the expression of your emotions. This aspect covers the basis of emotional intelligence research for improving mental health, social likability, educational outcomes, and success in other areas of your life. The inception of a new intelligence. It is of high importance to check and note, at the origin, that emotional intelligence is reasoned as a type of intelligence. That is to say, people differ by some unique ability in dealing with their emotion. It is believed that the areas in which the differences manifest are complicated and varied. Check out these one of many principled lists of abilities that might be compiled. Getting to discover an individual's emotions by facial cue, rhythm and voice pitch, and bodily posture, either standing or sitting. Getting familiar with the antecedents and consequences of emotions. Presiding over thoughts by evoking particular emotions. Controlling negative emotions, which includes anger and sadness. The concept of emotion alongside intelligence seems reasonable, because we get to run into emotional geniuses, emotional idiots, and the typical individual of normal or moderate emotional competence in the activities we carry out. In short, the idea of an intelligence continuum is forceful. Unfortunately, it is seen as emotional stupidity in action that is witnessed in real time by a lot of people across the globe. However, calmness is not all better or worse than excitability. The concept of emotional intelligence that is currently being discussed implies a strict framework that interlinks emotional abilities with other phases, including conventional mental ability. So to understand what is really meant by emotional intelligence, we have to check out how emotional intelligence might be a bit different from standard, consensually agreed on forms of cognitive intelligence. Chapter 2. All-Around Intelligence and Its Critics. The concept of emotional intelligence did not just show up, no, not out of the blue. It basically has its root firm in past physiological thinking, research, and practice. Now the concept of emotional intelligence has come to prominence, not against itself, but a background of dissatisfaction with typical theories of intelligence. It has been estimated and nurtured past infancy by those sets of people who contend that a single intellectual quotient score does not qualify to all the potential that any individual may possess. For you to understand the historical connections involved in emotional intelligence, then we should briefly look into the concept of human intelligence and how it is currently examined by experts. A lot of people believe that they know what intelligence really is, probably because they have had the chance to take a series of tests or related attributes over the course of their lives. It's simple. Emotional intelligence typically explains intellectual and academic capacities for abstract reasoning, analysis, and problem solving. The scientific model of intelligence, which is centered on rigorous theory, analysis, and application, with no doubt captures the essence of what it entails to be an intelligent person. Even with this, a lot of psychologists have gone against the notion that intelligence is nothing more than abstract problem-solving ability. Doubts about this go as far back as the 20th century, where one of the pioneers of intelligence testing, Alfred Binet, claimed that general intelligence might not be the only impending factor important for effective social functioning. This means we could also decide to view emotional intelligence as a subset of the social intelligence domain, moving toward the science of emotional intelligence. What we've been trying to disclose so far is that emotional intelligence is difficult to research. The concept is so wide. Social emotional abilities are difficult to express in conventional psychological tests, even those that profess to measure emotional competencies. Far beyond the concern for objective truth, there are a lot of reasons why a scientific understanding of emotional intelligence is important and necessary. Focusing on the exceptional. If your aim is to foster your emotional intelligence and brilliance in order to profit from the wisdom of the emotionally gifted, you have to know who they really are. Equally, you also have to be able to identify the emotionally impoverished for you to develop meaningful interventions and be on top of your game anywhere you go. Just as good intellectual tests are important to identify cognitively gifted and challenged individuals, standardized emotional intelligence tests also are required to check out for those individuals who may be in need of emotional enrichment, as well as support and training when it comes to dealing with emotion-laden situations. Mapping out the natural space of emotional intelligence. Studies over the years have shown that emotional intelligence is not distributed randomly across human groups. For instance, both stereotypes and rigorous personality studies suggested that women are more likely to possess acceptable characteristics. In turn, parts comprising acceptability, such as empathy, awareness of the feelings of others, and getting over stress through tending and likability, are thought by some to be central to emotional intelligence. It is also important to get familiar with how emotional intelligence might be distributed across different occupational groups. Maybe social workers are really more emotionally intelligent than computer programmers? Some people tend to be so emotionally unintelligent when interacting with other people around them. Why is this so? Based on numerous research works carried out, it's been evaluated that words can carry the stimulus functions of the activities or experiences they designate, even when these words have not been associated with empirical or direct operant conditioning. For instance, the phrase or word shock will carry on with itself some of the aversive functions of shock itself, even when the word has not been directly linked with an actual shock. Studies have also shown that many of the ways we frame our experiences are derived not directly from past experiences, that these derivations often occur alongside the arbitrary dimensions, but from the ones which include relative worth or importance, with no objective initial or physical reference to verify them, and that those derivations are made even when they do go in line with the actual contingencies that we experience. This phenomenon, in turn, appears to be unique to humans who communicate effectively and to cause a distinct set of persuasive problems. What effect does all this have to the social world? First, it can mean that verbalizing about sorrowful social interactions can be as painful as when we go about ruminating about a past social conflict. Second, it can also mean that verbal process can change the way we behave socially, even when social contingencies are not involved. For instance, if you are told a stranger is dangerous, you might want to avoid such person without ever having had a bad experience with him or her. Third, when we frame or think about a particular social experience with a negative evaluation, the functions of that experience are changed and become correspondingly more negative or aversive than they actually are from a nonverbal individual, or to be precise, than they would be actually from a direct contingency perspective. For instance, if a man or woman frames marital relationship problems as hopeless and their behaviors within the marriage as unforgivable and proves that they are worthless, this is likely going to result into an ineffective action and enhanced unpleasantness. Emotional intelligence gives you the chance to make the distinction between having a thought and believing it. And by believe, I mean that certain verbal contents have a dominator role in behavior. You can resolve to the evaluation, I am not lovable. And this evaluation in turn may prevent you from engaging in social behavior in the case where you conclude the evaluation was believed. In contrast, you could even have the same evaluation and behave in a way that makes it likely that you will get to meet someone you'll like. Emotional intelligence and social likability work in hand and posits that whether or not signs and symbols that are believed depends on context. For example, in a situation where evaluations are carefully observed, they may be experienced as disturbing sounds, rather than as truth that must guide behavior. In this scenario, words like, I'm not likable, may have no impact on your behavior and personality. Getting past private experience. Earlier, we were able to explain and establish how verbal reports take on many of the stimulus functions of the actual experience. This makes it easier for us to evaluate the verbal reports to be bad and try as much as possible to get rid of them, just the way as you would avoid something aversive in the outside environment. Words only allow us to make up and create labels for private experiences. Take this for an example. We always label different sensations and thoughts as anxiety. Then we evaluate anxiety to be bad and seek to avoid it. Finally, our languages give us the chance to create various senses of self. We create a sense of I, and this sense can be evaluated to be inadequate, worthless, special, and powerless. If the term becomes too aversive, we may want to get over it, probably through alcohol, gambling, or work. Unfortunately, experiential avoidance does not appear to have any effect in the long run. I've been able to talk with a lot of people, and over the years, they all resolved to saying that when subjects are asked to suppress a thought, they later show an increase in this suppressed thought, as compared with the others not given suppression instructions. Actually, the suppression strategy may stimulate and control the suppressed mood in a kind of self-amplifying loop. Chapter 3. What about bringing it all together? Believing, getting past, and behaving aversively. Believing, getting past or avoiding, and emotional awareness are hypothesized to be intertwined. Getting to trust unhealthy rules and evaluations is expected, of course, in many contexts to be added up to increased avoidance and reduced emotional awareness. For instance, when you have something like this, I appear to be unlovable, and fully believe it, such an insinuation is likely to be quite averse. It may trigger you to avoid situations that evoke the evaluation. The evaluation may also show up to dominate your world. that you eventually become insensitive to environmental contingencies and less aware of other people's emotions and behaviors that might be inconsistent with the evaluation. For example, when young couples are angry with themselves and evaluating each other negatively, they tend to forget emotions and become less aware of the parts that are inconsistent with their other partner being bad. They may even not notice when their partner is showing signs of affection. And eventually the low awareness of affection may in turn make it more visible to believe their partner is actually bad. This is it. If you believe you're too anxious to be around other people and you try to avoid everyone that comes in contact with you, then I'm afraid you may be reinforced by the momentary avoidance of social avoidance. The rule itself that resulted to the avoidance of anxiety eventually becomes reinforced and more believed. Still going with this view, there is evidence that the tendency to carry on with experiential avoidance is associated with believing unhelpful rules, banned self-evaluations. There is also strong evidence that trusting in unhelpful, negative self-evaluations is associated with lower and more inaccurate awareness of time-to-time emotions and behavior. Socially anxious individuals have a bias to give in to negative social evaluation and tend to underestimate their own social skills and build on people's negative appraisals. Finally, one could say there is strong evidence that high avoidance is associated with low awareness. Individuals who show the attitude that they are low in awareness tend to engage in behaviors that appear to be in the service of avoiding emotions. One better explanation for the bond between avoidance and awareness is that emotionally unaware people are unable to fully work through and assimilate difficult emotional situations and events. Consequently, they may resolve to ineffective avoidance strategies to control and manage their emotions. Making the decision for a change. What to do? Effective emotional orientation. This term involves the willingness to have private experiences, for instance, anxiety or grief, when doing so encourages effective action. It also involves accepting the inevitability of unfavorable effect and negative self-evaluation, and getting to know that these private experiences do not have to hinder you from pursuing a structured and valued direction. People who have low emotional orientation chronically attempt to escape or get rid of their unfavorable private experiences. Thought suppression. This part assesses the tendency to get over unpleasant thoughts, although this form of avoidance has been considered to be ineffective, as it tends to be associated with anxiety, depression, poor relationship quality, and a low level of social support. A documentary came up about this some years ago, revealing that emotional suppression impairs incidental memory for information tendered while suppression is ongoing, suggesting that suppression may impair the process of social information. At the same time, suppression may elevate the impact of the to-be-avoided social information. This means that suppressing thoughts about past relationships would only bring about a rebound in thoughts for a no longer desired relationship, and any form of attempt to keep and suppress a secret thought results into increased intrusions of that thought. Acceptance and Action Questionnaire. This simply measures the willingness to experience thoughts, feelings, and physiological expressions without having to control them or allow them to evaluate one's actions. You just have to understand that low acceptance is associated with lower relationship satisfaction, fewer numbers of social supports, and less satisfaction with social support. Seeking excessive reassurance seeking. Reassurance seeking has been explained as the stable tendency to continuously seek assurances from other people that you are lovable and worthy. Blaming behavior. This is oftentimes used to avoid anxiety, loneliness, and hurt. For instance, if people put the blame of their marital breakdown on their partner, It may be easy for them to defend against such self-evaluations as, "I'm not good looking enough to be in a relationship," and "I'm not lovable." In general, success in the numerous studies carried out has shown that behavioral therapy seems to be improved by working on genuine incompatibilities and idiosyncrasies of couples. Using emotion as information. The second aspect of emotional intelligence involves the use of emotions and emotional knowledge as information to ensure effective action. There are quite a number of sections to this dimension, but we will only focus on one part, namely, skill at identifying your emotions. This ability is important to making use of emotion as information because emotions often feed us with information about our own desires and about the social world. For instance, anxiety can arise from the appraisal that an individual may engage in something undesirable in the future. Anger, on the other hand, results from the appraisal that a person somehow has acted unfairly, and this has resulted in something undesirable. The emotionally unaware person is guessed to not be able to use emotional signals as a guide to effective social action. It may turn out that they do not know when they are angry and always about to explode, or that they are experiencing anxiety and avoiding an essential social interaction with people. A condition known as alexithymia shows the difficulty in identifying and describing one's emotion, minimizing one's emotional experience, and focusing one's attention externally rather than internally. These subscales mentioned are related to a variety of negative indices of one's success and well-being. Also, several medical conditions have been linked with alexithymia. They include hypertension, gastrointestinal and bowel disorder, and chronic pain. Not only these, but has also been linked to the early mortality. Now, let's assume that this term, alexithymia, suffer from more emotional disorders, physiological problems, and alcohol abuse. We should have the expectations that this variable will have a dramatic effect on one's social world. How to curb this? One of the important goals to relay in psychology is to reduce suffering and improve your ability to get along with other people. One way to go about this is to investigate why some people are particularly resilient and effective socially. If you're able to identify what skills this set of people have, then presumably you can emulate the skills and be a better person, not only socially, but also taking your emotional intelligence to another level. What about everything else? In the coming chapters, we'll be laying emphasis on how people see you and what they think about you. Now that you have an intense knowledge on what emotional intelligence really is and how it works, then it's time to relate it with social likability and bring out the best in you with interactions with other people that you get to meet with out there. All that has been discussed from the beginning of this book has been based on various research work that was conducted to really know what emotional intelligence entails, as a lot of people do not really know how and what it takes to trigger your intelligence to work with the way you relate with other people and really become a superhuman. Chapter 4. Getting familiar with the next phase, emotional intelligence plus likability. The only thing that should be on your mind as you go on with this book is to start thinking about how people see you, along with the decisions and choices they make about you. By getting to know what those choices are and how they are made, you can set up a sixth sense about what works and does not work when you present yourself to other people. The idea being that when you fully get to understand the way your presence influences others, you'll be able to manipulate your actions to get the results you want and influence your social likability. Even though you feel that sounds manipulative, it doesn't have to be all tweaked. Just like any tool, it's all in how you make use of it. Don't forget, you already have a bit of the emotional intelligence. If you decide to go down the road of manipulation, yes, social likability can be much more of a tool. But I would say a big part of social likability is having that power and strength and making use of it. I could put a full book about the benefits of being likable, but I guess you already have a goal to meet in mind because I believe you wouldn't be reading this right now if you didn't. So what I want to do now is open up a little secret for you, one of the most profound secrets that likable people everywhere hold over the mean, dormouse men and women that seem not to be getting any attention. Social likability isn't forced, it's organic, with 3 things involved. First, you have to feel the confidence inside of you that will make it happen. Have you ever wondered why a woman would swing by into a bar and have men flock to her in droves? Or a man who can seemingly get a date with just any lady? Yes, they are likable, but beneath that, likability seems to be something more, a feeling of self that transcends simple surface traits. They are certain about themselves, and we are all moved and intoxicated by that powerful feeling of sense of our true self. That's you. You have to be 100% confident all the time if you want to be remotely successful in the likability world. Here are some secrets I've used for years, and my notion has always been, if it can work on someone like me and other people I've worked with, then it will definitely work for you. Step out of your comfort zone just a little bit. I used to think what you're thinking right now, too. You feel you'd have been the most confident person in the world by now if being confident was really that easy. But the truth is, most of the time, we tend to make it harder on ourselves than it has to be. Not when you've worked on your emotional intelligence. This has been able to be a part of you because you spend about 60% of your day with unfocused thoughts. Thoughts that wander from what time is it to how can I make my presentation for that person more captivating to I wish I was eating pizza right now. The truth is, you really shouldn't consume all your energy on thoughts that do not matter. You can actually do something instead of think about it until you catapult into a confident person within a very short time. The truth is, you can have a high emotional intelligence and still lack the confidence to make it play out well. The way to this is simply by stepping outside of your comfort zone, just a little bit. If you're used to doing the same thing during the weekend, and as a result, you run into the same people over and over again, making you feel like there isn't anyone to date, or talk to, or new people to get to know, now is the time to create a profile that shows off your most confident, happy self. For instance, write about how you love to try new things, heading to music festivals, or trying new restaurants, and the likes that would influence you leaving your present position. Don't leave without giving a compliment to someone that deserves it. Think about it. When was the last time you got a compliment from someone? Chances are you probably might not remember. Most people don't come from a giving side of mind because most people are so consumed by their own lives that they find it so difficult to step outside of themselves and enjoy the person and or the moment for what it is. One thing you have to note is how you'll gain confidence and credibility as a person around all what you may be going through when you stop by, smile, and give someone a compliment. It could come as simple as, I love that shirt. Where did you get it? Or it could be something like, I feel much better after you showed me that little secret about my Word document. Thanks. Compliments make people feel good about themselves, especially when they know it's actually a sincere one. That's when they are not able to pick up on inauthentic statements. When you make people feel good, they'll surely associate you with feeling good. Imagine a secret skill that would make you become more popular than you could have ever hoped for. Become a skilled daydreamer. I would want you to emulate this also. It's always good when you make use of your mind to achieve what you want most in life. That sounds like the first step to social likability and success. Maybe you want to have an active life, a thriving career, and the ability to become fit and thin in any location, or establish a happier and more harmonious relationship with your partner at work. Becoming a skilled daydreamer is your option there. Here's why. Your subconscious mind is filled with numerous thoughts, emotions, and attitudes, many of which you might have learned while observing others or getting to know more about life. Unfortunately, some of these feelings and thoughts, emotions and attitudes are negative and quite limiting. A thought may come as, "It doesn't look like I'll ever get this money, so why even try?" These subconscious feelings and thoughts guide your actions and in turn dictate your behaviors. It can stop you from making more money, better opportunities, and a greater love. But here's the good news. You can actually fight and change your subconscious thoughts by reprogramming your conscious mind with your emotional intelligence. You can achieve this by becoming a self-proclaimed daydreamer at the pro level. I bet your friends and colleagues will make jest of you at first. Wait until you start getting financial opportunities they would only dream of. By focusing on just one picture in your mind, maybe imagining yourself playing basketball with a whole team of people who happen to be your good pals, you can convince yourself that in fact you have this in your life and you can improve your confidence about it. The first step to doing this is by coming up with one basic ideal picture, something you desire to have or become in your life, and imagine it over and over. Dream about it with intentions as though it's actually happening for real several times a day. Repeat this with time. Trust me, it will really help. The second step to improving your confidence through daydreaming is simply visualizing it while believing it. In other words, you really do not have to go through the motions and lament, it sure would be nice to have an amazing person in my life. Have the belief that it's happening right now, as though you are the miracle worker in your own life with your emotional intelligence. You have your dreams right in your hands, so you have the power to either manifest them or block them from coming through in your life right now. Daydream by placing focus on the emotions. So, if you wish to have the confidence to make a whole lot of people laugh, dream about speaking to others and listening to their laughter echo to the room. Watch their smiling faces and imagine yourself to be the powerful, comedic presence in their life and as the figure they can depend on to feel much better, based on your confidence to stand and tell a great joke or to be a skilled storyteller. Trust me, repetition only makes it get better. Capture and picture the image of what you want to carry out in your mind. And learn to dream with intentions, having at the back of your mind that whatever it is that you want to accomplish will definitely come true because you have the right mind. It's just a daydream away. For you to become credible, it's important that you stop taking note of what others think. More specifically, you have to let go of the thoughts that have been plaguing you since the last outing you made. Did someone make jest of you regarding your hobbies? Ignore you altogether? Forgot your name? Trust me, it doesn't really matter. That shouldn't mean anything. When you come across someone for the first time, they will make a series of snap judgments about the kind of person you are and whether they really want to start a conversation with you. If you remain in that position to think about the mistakes you've made, they'll keep on judging that same mistake-prone person you were years or months ago. Just let it go. Be someone interesting, exciting, and above all, new. That's when you can build a rapport that will influence social likability. Chapter 5. Building Emotional and Social Effectiveness. This part has been designed to provide you with one or two approaches for building each of the 5 emotional and social effectiveness strategies. Consider the ideas with your specific needs in mind and adjust as needed. In this chapter, the skills will be our main and primary point of reference. Be free to adapt your application of the skills to any system you prefer to best utilize the assessments or processes that satisfy your practice. In the quest to assist yourself in gaining sustainable behavior change, it is recommended that you consider a variety of approaches. Flexibility will enable you to adjust to each unique situation. The skills are highlighted as follows. Valuing oneself. You have a personal definition of who you are. It may appear to be accurate or inaccurate, conscious or unconscious, but it's important to understand that it's not possible for anyone with conscious awareness to avoid developing a personal sense of true self. This sense of self is the nexus around which you build relationships, select goals, and make individual choices about the quality and structure of your life. The extent to which you value yourself will determine the success of all your work together. An individual sense of self is developed through childhood expectations and successes or failures, and continues being influenced throughout adulthood. Building and maintaining a perfect sense of self grows out of applying skills in different areas, such as self-regard and being emotionally aware while also valuing other people. It's heavily determined and influenced by the capacity to maintain a positive mood, enjoy the moment, and be happy with all that exists right now, and also to be optimistic about future opportunities. People often come into coaching with a need for significantly adjusting the way and extent to which they respect and value themselves. A lot of people seem to be hard on themselves, expecting behaviors and outcomes that can never come to life, while others seem to have an inflated sense of self-importance that guarantees others will be cut off, and strongly shows weakness in their empathy and in the skill of effectively getting to know others and the environment. The following strategies, methods, are sample approaches for guiding you to develop a strong sense of your own value while keeping in balance the perspective that is necessary by appropriately respecting others and the communities in which they are involved. Healthy self-talk. Some spiritual practitioners years ago developed the practice of keeping their minds at ease during meditation. This is a very powerful skill. A lot of people, however, reason their minds as a continuous chatterbox, constantly evaluating thoughts, actions, and goals. Some people still walk by a mirror and tell themselves how they look, which often isn't good enough. Probably they are too fat, skinny, tall, or short. You can work on your skills to improve the self-talk you engage in. Done well, this isn't a simple or quick process to learn, but you can trust the result to be transformative. The procedure begins with what you're telling yourself, and once this awareness is grounded, beginning to alter the messages until the preferred messages that go in line with the preferred behavior occur as the habitual pattern of thinking. Basically, 3 primary parts are linked to this intervention. Fact gathering. Much of the value of this process is based in accurate and comprehensive fact gathering. This simply means paying attention to and accurately listening to those messages that are often so habitual but virtually hidden. It also means finding out what influences the message and how often it's likely to come up. Keep calm and become aware of how the message is communicated. Ask yourself the question, what is the tonality or emotional texture behind those words that you hear? Installing the new way. Here you will identify the message you'd like to give yourself. This is simple. You'll just have to learn how to develop a simple, affirmative statement that supports your sense that you can appreciate yourself now while building your skills to do even better. The first step in doing a better job talking to people around you, believe you can. Confidence. Next thing is to practice how it sounds and feels when you change your self-message. Keep calm and focus on the emotions that come up when you say the new message. With this, you're building your emotional self-awareness as well as self-regard. You can work on this for a few days or weeks before moving on to the new skill. Guide yourself to expand your awareness of self-talk in other scenarios and continue the process of improving the messages to yourself. Valuing others. This is the second skill you'll need in your quest. No one seems to be an island. Relationships with other people govern success and your perceived quality of life. Yet as essential as this skill of valuing others is, it is a daily challenge for a lot. The expanding forms of communication, including voicemail, email, podcasts, and personal internet sites, present an undoubted problem to effective relationships. A lot of people get hundreds of emails per day. Young people send thousands of text messages a week. Yet, is our communication any better? Of course, the answer is, it depends. But we must agree that the quantity challenges quality. This is just one among the forms of cultural stressors that impair relationships. You have to build the skills in effectively valuing other people, and this requires that you have competence in many emotional intelligence skills, starting with a healthy combination of emotional self-awareness, getting to know yourself, and empathy, understanding and reading others. You have to invest in interpersonal relationships. You have to learn to be flexible and realistically optimistic. When you're doing this, building your skills in valuing others, begin with assessing the part of this skill base that represents your challenge. Acknowledging others. Learn to acknowledge others. We talked about this in the previous chapter when we discussed giving people compliments. This is just going to be a bit different. A few minutes a day of true recognition for the contributions of other people can make a difference in their day. For you to build this habit, you have to commit yourself to a given number of acknowledgments a day, probably 4 or 5, and then take 5 minutes toward the end of the day to put down notes on whom you noticed, how it felt to you, and how those in question responded. At the end, the positive results, when combined with increased awareness, are likely to be highly reinforcing. Responsive awareness. You are going to feel powerful when you are aware of what is happening, and also when you respond to the information you gain from your awareness. This skill is supported by choosing responses from a broad-based and well-developed foundation of multi-dimensional awareness by paying close attention to a whole spectrum of data, both the body, emotional, cultural, and systemic. To communicate effectively, you can begin with the 2 explained above. This way, you will understand the reasons for the emotions and other behaviors that may come up, and then answer to them adroitly and compassionately. Observing and practicing empathy. You're going to need at least 2 people with you on this one. One person will be labeled as C, and will be an observer, while person A will tell B about something going on in his or her life. Make it play out like this. A should speak for about 5 minutes about something of moderate importance in his or her life. B should listen and respond with the focus being kept on person A. C concentrates on A carefully, paying close attention to the verbal and the nonverbal communication. After 5 minutes, person A and C swing chairs, and person C moves on to retell the story as if he or she were person A, trying to match the qualities of the verbal and nonverbal communication that person A demonstrated earlier. Now A observes, and B responds similarly to the first telling of the story. After 5 minutes, you all can stop and discuss what just happened, what you have all learned, and how you might want to apply what you understood to your future ability to understand each other. The 3 of you will rotate positions about twice, as each one plays each role. Courage. Simply explained, courage is that single emotion that gives us the ability to act on what matters to us, in the presence of pain, danger, difficulty, or uncertainty, having it in mind that there will be consequences without necessarily knowing what those will be, but still acting anyway, without being stampeded by fear or being stopped from our own chosen course of action. To exercise this skill of courage, you'll need many emotional intelligence skills, including feeling real good about yourself, that the required act of courage is worth the energy it takes. For you to exercise courage, you must have motivation, a sense of possibility, and a sense that you know how to go about the task at hand. All it requires is a sense of optimism. Yes, you can. With reality testing, what are the advantages and disadvantages involved? Facing situations with courage will require overcoming fear, inertia, and ignorance. Reality check. This is the point where you get to enhance your skills in implementing effective reality checks in your decision-making processes. When you conduct a reality check, you should pay close attention to what is happening for you to read subtle cues in the political, social, and emotional environments. It will take time to consider how you understand the process, and then check with other people as well, and broaden their understanding matches so you can make good decisions individually and as a whole. This will encourage sustainable and collaborative decisions, as it's a perfect way of building respect for different points of view. This happens to be the basis of being capable and comfortable with divergent thinking, which is central to your skill in conflict resolution. Authentic success. Do you need a new boat to be successful? Will the boat make you happier? The answer seems to be very personal. Success is an individual indecision. While a lot of people spend a considerable amount of energy in a state of mild to moderate angst because they don't feel sufficiently successful, many haven't really sat down to think about what success really means to them. A knowledgeable personal explanation of success calls for awareness of personal capacity, life circumstances, and their values, and then bringing these elements together with realistic optimism. The word authentic shows that success is genuine, not fake, or based on keeping up with other people for the sake of appearances. Success indicates the achievement of something planned, or something turned out well. Authenticity also is a significant qualifier that determines success because it is a link to reflective awareness. It requires taking the time to determine how well the results match the expectation. Adding up values with expectation. Life balance is getting much of the attention these days. There is a deep longing for sagacity and for personal time, as well as true interest in developing successful careers. It's very difficult for a lot of people to bring the two together. If you're struggling with this balancing act, you just have to recognize that you need to take responsibility for your choices and actions. If you're about to apply for a promotion, then it's a good time to list your values. Notice how your time is divided across different parts of their lives right now, and then decide whether you want the added responsibility. The answer may be positive. Hopefully, going through this reflective process may require you to take responsibility for your decision to take on more, and not feel like a victim or a failure when you have to make changes or adjustments in your personal lives or when other changes occur. You may decide that life-work balance isn't a linear event, but instead a tapestry. Most times, one part of a person's life will gain a lot of attention. At other times, that can shift. However, having to work more and excessively can turn out to be a difficult habit to break. You have to learn to gain skills in reflective awareness. That is, take time to honestly and fully assess how you feel and why, to notice the choices you are making, take responsibility of those choices, and then consciously decide whether to keep the things the way they are or make changes. Chapter 6. What to start, what to stop. Sit back and think for a moment about the last time you came across someone you didn't like. What can you remember about them? Was it how silent they were or how they didn't flow well in the conversation? I doubt it. More than likely, the last person you can think of not liking was boorish and rude. There are two kinds of people who are not liked by others. Those that do not make an impression and therefore are not proactively liked or disliked, and those who seem to be so obnoxious or rude, so they instantly push you away from them. And to put things in view, you really do not have to be that obnoxious to be unlikable. In reasonable and polite company, it doesn't take much. The truth about it is, you cannot be likable if you do not learn how not to be unlikable. Everything that has been put together in this book focuses on helping you stand out, be confident, and interesting. But none of all that has been said does any good if you happen to take jabs at people you do not really know, make degrading comments, or generally assume the worst about someone you just met. Most of the time, these things are merely bad habits. Other times we find out that they are the results of lots of cynicism built up over years of poor skills. Whatever the problem may be, socialism starts with friendliness, and that's a bit harder for some of us than for others. The power of friendship. Maybe it's time for you to try a little harder so you can be much better. The basic key to understand on the road to likability is recognizing the traits that stand out as being unlikable. Think of that thing you're doing now that could make someone else cringe or stop listening. I can say from personal experience that you probably don't realize you're doing any of them. Eliminate such thinking that just because you're some kind of social savant with the people who do like you does not mean you don't have any bad habits. You only can know when you ask your friends or family. I'm sure they'll be able to point out the things on this list that go with your personality and probably offer you more than a dozen tips on how to fix the problem. There are a lot of things you never want to do to someone you adore and respect, especially if your aim is for them to like you. We've been able to come up with a list of rude and unfriendly workplace behaviors. They are things you should stop doing immediately. Taking credit for someone else's work. When your partner does something or broaches a topic, why not give them credit for the idea? One of the simplest ways we end a conversation in this case is saying, "Oh yes, I heard that the other day, and I also heard," then moving on as if you brought up the topic. This happens to be a bad habit many people have as they try to be engaging in conversation, but it generally stops or alienates other people from speaking. Discrimination or stereotyping. It's this simple. Don't say anything rude about someone else's race, gender, age, sexual orientation, or any other differences. It's actually rude, close-minded, and will almost always offend someone nearby. Discrimination goes a bit even farther. If your decision is based only on the key elements, you may be discriminating. This is one big thing to look out for in social likability. Talking down to other people. This one appears to be something common among us. Talking down to someone in a position you assume lower than yourself is a major way to alienate every new person you come across. Just because you have some people bagging your stuffs does not mean they are less intelligent or interesting than you. They could be your good friend or spouse. But talking down will create an uncomfortable situation every time you set eyes on each other. Inappropriate jokes or mocking. Mocking people or making unnecessary jokes is unfriendly in any situation. The only exception should be if you already know someone. That's when you can establish that kind of relationship and be sure that they will not be offended. Even at that, be sure to gauge the limits of your jokes, because it's very easy to go too far and create an uncomfortable scenario. Littering and general messiness. Just as your hairdo and clothing have a lot to do with your self-esteem and confidence level, your overall cleanliness in your car, office, or home will explain a lot about the kind of person that you are. Next time you're out with someone, look around for a garbage can for your empty coffee cup and not the bottom of a ditch. Use of technology while engaging in a conversation. Nothing is less friendly than taking out a cell phone or checking your watch while having a conversation. These interactions have unspoken subtext like, "This is far more important than our conversation." It will definitely upset those you are spending time with and will make you seem like you don't really care about their input. Patronizing. There is one common thing about some parents, especially the impatient ones. Just because a 7-year-old boy needs a bit of help understanding a new concept does not mean your coworkers or a person you stumbled on in the bar need to be talked to like that. It's somewhat unintentional 9 out of 10 times, but also, the effect is just as unfriendly. Eye-rolling and sarcasm. Think about it. If someone you just met rolled their eyes at a statement you uttered, or started making a sarcastic statement about you or your conversation, how long would you hang around and continue talking to them? Most of the time, people try to be playful or charming with sarcasm. It sometimes doesn't work, so stay with easy things, like non-personal jokes. Whining and complaining. These acts may not seem unfriendly, but doing them, even if it's unrelated to the person you are having a conversation with, will give a wrong impression. Whining and complaints make a lot of people either uncomfortable or upset. On the flip side, if you can maintain a positive tone while having a conversation, people will feed on your positivity and will also want to be around you more often. Unnecessary angry outbursts or yelling. To a lot of people, general anger is a turnoff. It simply shows a lack of self-control, a short fuse, and a tendency to judge other people and events without all the facts. If you have a habit of getting angry at random events, take a step back and relax before starting a conversation. Stay with positive actions and activities. Friendliness isn't difficult. It's probably the easiest thing you'll learn as you flow along. So, stepping out and talking to strangers can be a very difficult task at the beginning, but nothing to worry about. I've put up some really wonderful tips to help you carry on with that. Kill them with kindness, every time. Your aim is to be neighborly with your neighbor and coworkers? Or do you want to be able to achieve a greater camaraderie at work? Genuine kindness should be your main key, and I've found it to work out well. That's one thing that gets people to come together with a common goal. Giving a compliment is one way to bring others together. Offering to solve an issue is another important way to close up the gap between you and others. Engage in small talk like a pro. If you find yourself at a work-related dinner party or a social one, you can easily just start up a small talk with others around you. At first you might feel nervous, but that's fine. You might make the huge menu what you're overwhelmed about. Something like, "Have you ever seen so many salad options before? I haven't," would be good. Or you can talk about anything related to the meal you're taking at the moment, or the restaurant you're dining at. What about something like, "I've never had Cuban food before, what about you? It's always been my dream to go there. Have you traveled much?" Stepping out of your comfort zone to play a sport, or join a club, or meet someone in a bar. Those might be hard. Being friends with someone you just met? That's as easy as it gets. It just takes a different world perspective. Something's got you riled up? 9 times out of 10, the rudeness we show to others is not seen. No, you shouldn't just be a pushover. But is there really a need to yell at the man or woman in Starbucks after a 3-minute wait in line? It's not their fault, and they certainly cannot do anything about it. You could just as easily have made friends by telling a joke or making them feel better about what is most likely a stressful day, but instead you got rude and only made things worse. Anger is one of those agents that can severely interrupt even a good conversation. Have you ever had a partner or someone you're dating get angry while driving in the car? It's so uncomfortable. How is it always like? They yell, bang on the steering wheel, swear, and do all sorts of things that you'd never do in front of someone from whom you want to gain respect. Even at that, when you love that person, it's uncomfortable and slightly embarrassing. Now imagine doing that to a stranger, and think of how they'd react to it as well. Reducing unfriendliness. The only way you can live is if you grow. The only way you grow is if you change. The only way you can change is if you learn. The only way you can learn is if you are exposed. And the only way you can become exposed is if you throw yourself out into the open. Just do it. Throw yourself. Let's assume that you are a relatively nice person. You don't get overly angry at anything in particular, and you can always start and keep up with a decent conversation for at least a few minutes. So why then? Why do you still come off as unfriendly? No, you're not broken. This isn't a personality disorder, and you definitely don't need pills. To be more realistic, you're not even trying to be unfriendly. I'd call it a combo of insecurity and discomfort in the presence of others that is causing your unfriendliness, and 9 times out of 10, simply getting to know that discomfort will help to reduce it. Over the years, I've been able to come up with 3 don't-do communication pitfalls. I'm sure it would work for you too, as it would allow you to mend the disconnect in your relationship, repair any miscommunication that has recently taken place, and also communicate feelings of respect, admiration, and appreciation for your partner. No matter what type of relationship you're into, a romantic one, a professional one, or a personal one, maybe with a family member, a neighbor, a parent at your kid's school, etc., getting rid of these following pitfalls can drastically heighten your popularity, improve your ability to get along with everyone, and reduce social blunders that can affect your social life. Being defensive. One of the fastest steps you can take to emotionally distance your partner from you is by putting him or her on the defense. Saying things to your partner like, "Why would I want to make you feel this way? I didn't do it on purpose." Or, "Why haven't you asked me how I'm feeling when you know I've had a bad day today?" Makes your partner feel like they are under attack. Being in a relationship is simply about being on the same team and sticking together when times are rocky. It's far from picking fights and playing on opposite teams or positioning yourself against the other. Anytime you blame your partner for something, they feel backed into a corner and as if nothing they utter has an effect against what you're saying. So instead of you using you messages such as, "Do you always have to take your friend's side against mine?" Or, "You never tell me how good I look anymore," why not make use of the I messages? These messages are incredibly powerful and strong because they remove any opportunity for your partner to feel blamed and instead create a statement of how you're feeling, which is hard for anyone to deny or fight against, as it's simply the way you feel. Insulting your partner. Are you in a relationship in which you always fight dirty? If so, using a language full of insults is one of the easiest ways to turn your relationship into a destructive one and possibly headed for a breakup. A lot of other people prefer to call it contempt, insulting your partner in any tone or behavior that seems threatening, demeaning, or below the belt, may be comments that push their buttons. Embarrassing or insulting the other party puts you at war against him or her instead of working together to bring out a solution. The problem is, when you make use of contempt against your partner in a relationship, all rules are out of the window. The name-calling can start. The physical or emotional threats can bring up a whole new standard for fighting, now and for the future of your relationship. The pattern and sense of respect, confidence, admiration, and appreciation your partner felt is now gone. Perhaps worst of all, it tends to set a new standard for your relationship, that at any time you can declare war, and for any reason, on your partner. Because contempt is an emotional, irrational state to be in. Contempt can be somewhat degrading, such as comments like, "You're a fool. Why would you think I would want you to engage in that?" Or eyes rolling after your partner says a grammatically incorrect sentence. The undertone of that appears to be a clear message of, "You're stupid and I'm smart," or "You're correct and I'm wrong." That simple. You change how you talk, communicate, and address your feelings in a relationship before they pose a negative impact. Even when you're not in good agreement, you can still contribute something positive and help mend the disconnect without calling names, threats, or negative body language. One important thing to be aware of is your microbody expressions that explain what you're really thinking to your partner before you even say it out. It could be learning to monitor the way you roll your eyes or a frown you make every time you notice your partner doing something you don't approve of. Or you could try this other way out. Take a deep breath before you speak. so that you calm to censor what you want to say so you can assess it before actually spilling it out. Stonewalling. Probably you might not have heard of the term stonewalling before, but I bet there's a good chance you've participated in it a time or two. It's simply when one person is upset, communicating, or trying to explain their viewpoint on something, and you get off them by ignoring them or shutting them out. If you're doing the stonewalling, it could be because you're so frustrated that the only behavior you think might get the attention you want is by ignoring that they are even in the area at that time. But for the individual that is being stonewalled, it feels like they are being ignored and that their position in the relationship is being invalidated. Have you ever given someone the silent treatment before? Yes. Most times we are all guilty of it. All the time or most of the time. Unfortunately, stonewalling someone does not solve anything. And of course, it can cause the other person to become more defensive. One thing you can do is to practice active listening. I mean, the one you wouldn't have to react emotionally. Give the person the chance to say whatever it is they want to say. Just show that you're listening by nodding or saying, "I understand," and then responding by repeating back what they think they just said. You can study breaking the stonewalling pattern altogether by helping the person who is doing the stonewalling to come to a less emotional state. Ask those questions using positive statements to calm down by saying things like, "I know you're angry, and I want to help us come around to a solution as quickly as we can, so that we can both be happy again." Chapter 7. Putting it all to good use. Final thoughts. One of George Eliot's favorite quotes, "It's never too late to be what you might have been," has been able to remain on my checklist for a very long time, because I truly believe that all the tips in the world are of no use if you don't apply them step by step. In order to get people who you can connect with, share your new values and ideals with, and become good friends or something more. It's really a difficult work to walk, but trust me, everything gets better. The more you practice the tips, strategies, and techniques that have been put together in this book, the more confident and comfortable you will become. You'll quickly notice that with the kind of personality you possess, people will come to you. You will no longer need to go out to meet people or seek for dates. They'll gradually start to see your smooth confidence and radiating energy, and will have no choice than to gravitate towards you. As you move on into the world with the full energy and increased emotional intelligence, you should still keep some important points with you as you go on. These you shouldn't forget at any time. Learn how to listen. You have to be an active listener, and also an engaged participant. This simply means when someone is talking to you, pay close attention and focus on what they are trying to say. What are they excited about? What are they passionate about? Always nod and smile to let them know you're actively listening and interested in what they have to say. Empathy in action. A major part of this has been explained earlier in one of the chapters, but you should still keep this in mind. Always be involved in what someone else has gone through. An individual that is likable to people is the type who extends himself, herself, and thinks outside of the box. You can show to other people that you feel deeply by nonverbal cues. Trying to smile when they tell you something good, or having a serious expression when they disclose something to you, probably something traumatic that communicates a level of trust and connection. Try to make a strong eye contact when they speak, or when you speak to them. Try to nod when you show sympathy, and mimic their body language to suggest some kind of understanding. Confidence and surety of yourself. Work on your self-assurance by sitting up straight, smiling, and showing off your best self. You have to understand that people are instantly drawn to happy, smiling, and positive people. When your reactions show that you've got nothing to hide, just like an open book, and you love your life genuinely, other people will want to become part of that. When your focus is on staying true to yourself, always remind yourself of how awesome you are, and concentrate on the new steps with courage outside of your comfort zone. You'll get to discover that life might take you to places you used to only dream of going. Enjoy the process. Live it up, day after day. Decide what it is that you want. Staying on top of your game and being clear about what you want will allow you to stay focused on the prize and stop at nothing to come out in flying colors. If you're still after what you want, creating a list of about 40 things that you desire is a perfect way to start. For about half an hour, ask yourself the question, what do I want? Don't try to censor yourself. It could be anything. It could be a house close to the beach, the ability to make out your schedule, the ability to take pictures or take landscapes. After you ask yourself what you want, spend about 15 minutes asking yourself, what kind of human do I want to be? You may end up with answers such as, I want to be in a high authority, or I want a beautiful beach house in Los Angeles, or I want to have the time and freedom in a job that gives me the chance to set out my own schedule. By starting to answer the questions of what you want or the kind of person you want to be, you can start to dream big, broaden your reality, and start working towards the steps necessary to make your dream a reality. Act as if you already have what it is that you want. The words as if appear to be under an attraction principle that a lot of people have been using to get promotions and skyrocket their success and social likability to levels beyond what they even imagine. If your dream is to become the owner of a company, but you haven't been able to come up and stand out from the crowd, acting as if you already have is a perfect way to start it. It's all about asserting yourself with the traits of a successful person in the position you want. Robert Brault once said, charisma is not as much about getting people to like you as getting people to like themselves when you're around. Becoming a well-liked person is a skill, yet some people tend to be more natural than others, and most times can look like it's something that you're born with, but it isn't. There are many important belief systems to put in your mind, and we've been able to go through a whole heap of them in this book. Now you can be confident about your sense of communication with other people and can now impress 99% of your audience. Your old perceptions now have been changed. All that needs to be applied now are the confidence boosters and mindset secrets and tips you've read about in this guide. Impressing people now shouldn't be a selective activity. Your emotional intelligence now has gone to another level, a level that is great enough to bring out the amazing person in you. Nothing should stop you. Nothing can hold you down. Conclusion. Once again, I want to thank and congratulate you for purchasing the book, Emotional Intelligence, Skyrocket Your Social Likability, Eliminate Fear, and Control Your Emotions to Live Life on Your Terms. Become Superhuman. Now you can be confident of what you're going to become, because everything with you and around you has changed now. You can go on to become whatever you wish to become, likable in all aspects with your emotional intelligence always active. Go on to explore. I wish you all success as you go. Thanks again.